Welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we are doing our first initial thoughts and impressions of Atlantic Chase from GMT Games. Whoa, that was a lot. So this is a game designed by Jerry White, who is one of my favorite designers. And
he's pretty good.
Yeah, the games of his that I've played previously have mostly all been solitaire games.
Skies Above the Reich and
Enemy Coast Ahead. There's 2 in that series.
Yeah.
So, and Skies you can play co-op, but
we did it one time together.
Yeah, but it's a solitaire game, right?
Yeah.
Now this one is, to me, a 2-player game with a solitaire option.
Yes.
And I'd seen people positing that it was another solitaire game with a 2-player option. I disagree with that entirely. This is very much a 2-player game.
Well, and I would agree with that statement because this is one of those games that a solitaire opponent is just going to roll a couple of dice and do what it says on the table.
And that stuff's going to be pretty intelligent.
Right, because it has like priorities.
Yes.
If your trajectory is 5 or less, do this. So
good weather, bad weather, do this or that. Do this, longest one here, do this. Which is fine, and it's robust, but...
With a human player, there's going to be some bluffing and
you get into the cat and mouse of what these kind of... This was actually about, historically speaking, right? With, setting up wolf packs to trap convoys, sending out Royal Navy to intercept German shipping and things like that. So you get into, like you said, the bluffing and the feinting, the reactions to what happens in a 2-player game. That's going to be much richer, of an experience than the solitaire. Is going to be great, but the 2-player is it's just that extra added layer of interaction and interest for me. And that's the kind of game that I like anyway, where it's kind of wide open. The scenario gives you X and Y to do, and you get to choose how to do it.
Yep.
And then it's me and you trying to duke it out, and you're trying to get across, and I'm trying to catch you. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And games that have that element to it, right up my alley.
Yeah.
So, 2-player game for me with a really good solitaire. Again, if you wanted to buy this as a solo game, you can absolutely do this.
It's going to work.
But
yeah.
So it fits into both those categories nicely, but I would say that this is a 2-player game first. I
would wholeheartedly agree with that. Absolutely.
But now I've talked myself into it. If someone was like, hey, do you have any solitaire game recommendations?
This is going to be on that list.
This would be on that list.
Yeah. And we haven't even played it solitaire, but we think the system is cool, and we can see a lot of the potential there.
Yes, and because, so, again, this is an initial thoughts video.
Yeah. It's going to be rambling.
There'll be a full review here probably in a week's time.
We want to do a full playthrough
after we've played more. So what we did today is we sat down,
and it was very helpful.
Yes,
we sat
down for a couple hours and we played through the tutorial. Okay, and the tutorial is 50 pages long.
There's 10 sections,
most of which is pictures.
Yeah,
so don't worry about that. And it's 10. Some very small early on episodes where and it's just a way to incrementally teach you the rules, and by those last 2 or 3 episodes you're starting to basically play larger segments of a game.
Well, and I think more like the game.
Yes.
If you remember those first couple scenarios, it was put out a trajectory of 6 spaces, and
it's literally this is what this action does.
Yeah,
you change yourself from a station into some trajectories.
And
then you do a time lapse and you remove something.
Weather roll and you move on.
Right. So I guess that's the thing. Is people, if you've seen the unboxing of this, or if you've seen pictures of it, the first thing you'll notice is there's probably 120 pages worth of stuff here, if not double that.
4 different books, huge books.
Yes.
Right? They are thick
and that
robust.
Is both quintessential Jerry White, but also something you should not be scared of. Because if you're buying this as a solo game, one of those rules is 2-player scenarios, so you just toss that out. You don't need that.
Yep.
If you're playing as a 2-player game, there's a big solo scenarios and rules thing. You just toss that out. You don't need that. And a big hunk of it.
Scenarios.
Yeah, a big hunk of it is the tutorial, which you'll play through once and then basically never need again.
Yeah.
And then so really you just
unless you're forgetful and put the game up for a year, you might
Yeah, it might be
it's
a good refresher, but you've got a rule book and a scenario book
right
for whichever mode you're doing. That's really so don't be scared off by the amount of paper in it. Also, Jerry's rule books are full of examples and pictures, so it's not nearly as many words as you might expect, and the text is big and very well spaced out.
So here's an example. This is actually right in the middle fold, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all pictures.
Yes.
It's literally, now there's some little text, but it's taking you through this example. So that's what this is. I know it looks thick. It really is a lot there.
Yeah.
But it's manageable.
But it's not dense
text.
This is not something, do not let it intimidate you in any way, shape, or form. And as are all of his games that I've played, they're able to be played and learned incrementally. The solo ones, the scenarios are like, play this tiny bit. And then the second scenario is play this tiny bit with this little bit added.
Yeah.
And then you add it and add it and add it, and then scenario 10 is the whole campaign from start to finish.
Yep.
That's how those work, and is a really good way to ease yourself into this big thing, instead of having to sit there and read a 50-page rulebook and learn it all. This is very similar, but you do it through your tutorials, which go through 10 different tutorial scenarios, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you'll launch into your 2-player scenarios, of which there is an unconscionable amount.
I want to say how many are there?
There's a ton of scenarios, and you can play them
12.
Yeah, there's like massive campaigns game that you can play. You can play just an operational scenario. There's mini scenarios where you do a smaller thing. So again, you can tailor this game to whatever kind of play situation that you're in. Do I have a whole day to play with, and I want to do a massive campaign, and we sit here for hours doing this? Or do I just want to crack it out for an hour, play a mini scenario? We had some back and forth, and it was fun.
We played for more like 4 hours.
We did, because we're doing a tutorial and learning the game.
Right. That's what I mean, it took us 4 hours to kind of get through all of that. And we asked a lot of questions. We asked, even before we should have asked those questions, I was asking questions.
Yeah, it's very easy, especially because we've played a lot of games, to be like, okay, well,
I get this concept.
I know that they're going to add something to this, and this particular action enables me to try and attempt this type of maneuver. Well, where's this bit of it? Right. Well, that bit of it's a couple of episodes later. Don't worry about it. It's coming.
It's coming.
And so we're kind of leafing through it. But what I would say is, this is a very good way to learn this game, and I would recommend that you do so.
Well, and frankly, I've done this with several games.
Yes.
Right? Comancheria, one of my all-time favorite solo games, I did that. I played the entire playbook. And there were times I'm like, okay, I know what we're trying to do. But I still followed through with it.
Yes.
My first coin game, Liberty or Death, I did the introductory playbook, and it took me an hour, and I did that with Fire in the Lake. And it's just what you got to do to get some of these systems down.
Yes, and why that's important for this one is because this game is very different from any other war game I've ever played.
Seen any game like this.
Yeah, and so as such, if we pick up a hex encounter war game, there's some assumptions that you can make, or when they say do an attack or spend movement points, I know what a movement point is. I know that terrain's going to affect those movement points, and I know that I'm going to count hexes based on those movement points, right? So, it's really easy to learn certain new games. When it's something completely fresh and new like this is, a tutorial like this to take you step through step and introduce you to all the new things is really, really helpful. Because if you just sat here and read the rule book, it's a lot of new stuff. And the tutorial gets it out on the board, and you're playing it, you're moving the pieces, which is easier for your brain to actually learn and remember those through seeing and doing. Yeah. Especially for me. But it also just helps you to understand the grand scheme of the game, and see it instead of just doing the words and trying to figure that out.
So let me give you a very simple example. I think in maybe the third or fourth little module, I was the Germans, and it's like we were coming close together, and I'm like, well, how am I going to get away from you? Because we had not learned evasive maneuvers and some of these other things, and that was answered 2 turns later, or two scenarios later, and now I went, oh, okay, now I totally understand. Yep. I understand what an evasive maneuver is. I understand what this concept is. I understand what a what is it when you do the last 6 trajectories?
Oh, a completion.
A completion move. And if you can just get to that point, man, that completion move is pretty amazing.
Very powerful, yeah.
So it really built on each other, and I think it brought it all together in a very logical, systematic way.
Yes, yes.
And I actually really enjoyed going through it step by step by step.
Yes.
Because it didn't overwhelm you. It wasn't like drinking from a fire hose.
No.
It was like, drinking from a glass of water.
And we have drunk from the fire hose many times.
Many a time.
The most, yeah.
We've had some games where I feel like we jumped in with both feet.
Yeah.
And an hour and a half later, we're like, maybe we shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, or even like, there's a lot.
I can't think of any, but
this game, I don't know. I think companies are understanding that if a game is either mega complicated or just something that's very new, that these kind of tutorials or playbooks are really good for getting people into something.
They're almost necessary. They're almost required because this is so different.
Yeah,
the concept of the trajectories and everything you're doing here is very, very different than what we've done
The
before.
reality is if they didn't have the tutorial and they just printed the rule book, you could play this and it would be a great war game and people would like it. But the tutorial makes the barrier of entry so much lower than it already is. Because the game isn't mega complicated. It's just a huge lateral step from the types of hex and counter games that we normally play. The actions that you're taking are very different, and what they represent is very different and also abstract.
Yeah.
And so you gotta get your head around some of those things. And whilst you could do that, just learning the rules, the tutorial's really gonna help you do that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of these different actions, from airstrikes to those completion moves we talked about, trajectories, reorganization, passing. I mean, there's about 12 to 15 different things you can do. So, yeah, but I will say this. So, there's a lot of strategy to this thing.
My goodness, yes.
There are a lot of ways to mess with your opponent. There's a lot of ways to attempt to circumvent or get around or get away from. We saw in that I think number 7, really saw some interesting trajectory layout moves and a mistake that you made.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, okay, I understand that now, that I shouldn't have done that because it really made my interception roll or whatever that was called.
My naval search roll.
Very difficult.
Yes.
So there's just a lot of tricks in the toolbox here.
Yes.
I think.
And the other thing that I had been asked was, is weighing this up as a game versus kind of like just a historical simulation. And so I had my eyes open with whilst we were learning this. Is this just like some naval sim game, or is it like an actual? How much gaminess is there between us?
I felt like there was quite a bit of gaminess. The answer to that is
significant.
Yeah.
I really have a lot of high hopes for really getting into this, because even from laying out your trajectories and where you're going, like, sure, you could go from A to B. You're gonna lose the game if you do that, but you could do it.
Well, and there's almost some points where you have to do that.
Right.
Where it's like you have to lay that out in that way, and you're going to have to rely on other things. You're going to have to rely on evasive maneuvers, and you're going to hope that you get some bad weather as well.
Or do I, I'm going to kind of go a time lapse and shorten that, and then I'm going to move this way. If I get my trajectories broken up by naval searches, I then have like, okay, I've kind of been found. So where am I going to go to evade those kind of things? And the choices are wide open for you. I really think there's a lot of game here.
I don't know that I agree that they're wide open, though, because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Yes.
Or at least the minimized line, because there's some areas where you can't go through it because of air bases and stations, etc. So there's really only 2 or 3 hexes each way that you can go, I think.
Right,
but there's a lot of variance in that 2 to 3 hexes.
Yes, and the shapes that you move as you go through that, you can do. It's up to you. Like, you have the choices about where you go, is what I mean by that.
Yep.
like you have complete control over what you do. You can do very simple things or very straightforward things, or you can try to do all these feints and bluffs and kind of go in roundabout ways to do things, or you can just be like, I'm just going to beeline it and hope for the best. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's so, to me, there is a good chunk of two-play game in here.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt.
That's what I really like.
Yeah, there's some gaminess there. And there's also, to me, there's a lot of different tools that you have. You've got to understand them, and I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for us. I think we're both smart guys, but it's grasping, this player aid and really understanding how can I use those 12 mechanics at the appropriate times and in the appropriate manner to get done what I need done.
Yeah, the rules really aren't massively complicated.
No.
But the strategies and the little tricks and maneuvers that you pull off and how you do those there's a lot of richness to be explored there, I think, which is going to reward you playing this. There's a billion scenarios, so you'll never get bored doing that either.
This would be such an interesting game to play with someone like Jerry. He's obviously played this how many times? 100 times?
It's one of those, yeah, but you'd like, hey, let's play, and he'd just like destroy you.
Well, and that's what I think that's what I'm saying is it's really going to require you to get familiar with it and play it again and again to understand and comprehend exactly what and you may be sitting there going, well, Grant, that's the way every game is. True. But some war games, like you said, I got movement value, I got a CRT, I got to get this amount of, combat factors together, and I'm going to be able to beat you.
Some games reveal themselves very easily.
Yeah.
And others reward your investment of time.
Yeah.
Like they just get better and better and better the more you play them.
Yeah.
In a way.
And this is I think this is what that is.
I would agree with that statement.
And that's why I think our approach here, doing the introductory, play, following the playbook, talking about it, and then doing a more fully in-depth play, and then doing a review video is, like the game we played a couple weeks ago, Rostov 41, great war game.
Excellent war game.
Excellent war game. But I don't know that there was a lot of hidden stuff there that I didn't fully understand, except for like the exploitation,
right?
Some of those little more nuanced things, but
that's like the mechanics in that with moving and attacking on an odds-based CRT.
Yeah.
Those are war game staples,
yep.
And so it was really easy to get into that because we have a lot of experience with that. But there's nuances in the strategies that you employ, but it's. I move my armor here, swing around the back here. Stuff that we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? This is something very different.
It is.
Even in how to utilize your mechanics to your advantage is something new. I've never done any of this before. And so there's a lot here to dive into as well.
Yeah.
The production value is off the chain. I will say that.
It's beautiful. I mean, these little trajectory markers are just phenomenal. They're little wood formation blocks like you'll see in table battles or other.
Yeah.
They're not used in the same way.
No.
But they've got these little lines on them, and they're just so cool. Just great.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. A lot of the tables are printed on the map because the actual operational board's not all that big. But again, I will show you more, all of that stuff and how it works in the review video that's coming soon.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna cut it there because
I guess the only other thing I want to say is a lot of people that I've seen talking about this game, there's some hesitancy.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And I don't think it's because Jerry's a bad designer. He's a fantastic designer.
He's amazing designer. Yes.
It's just people look at it and I don't think they fully understand. I know I didn't.
Yep.
When I unboxed it, I wish we'd have played it one time. So now I know what this meant. And what this is used for and how this is used. But I guess what I'm saying is don't get intimidated. I think you're going to miss a really great game. Yes. And I know that's hard to say after we've just played for 4 or 5 hours, but I feel like this is a really solid game. To me, I'm going to call it early. This is only like the second or third 2021 game we've played. This has got to be in that top 10 to 15
This is something that's very, very good from what we've learned so far. So you will see more of this from us,
Yeah.
But it's got this great head-to-head mechanic where I'm laying out my trajectory lines, and then you're trying to intercept those, and so I'm trying to like rush past you, or if I do get intercepted, I'm going to attack courses and things like that. All these bobbing and weaving things that's going on, and then trying to get into seizing initiatives, modifiers.
That's a very cool.
Stuff.
That seizing initiative concept is very cool.
Yeah, some actions that I take are quite powerful.
Yeah.
And so you have this seize the initiative attempt to try and stop me from completing those, or you know, after you do a really good thing, you know, you get a chance to react to said good thing.
Yeah.
And if you mess that up, you get a modifier on attempting that in the future, or if you pass, like, it suddenly jumps to you, and you can then like react to what's happened.
And it's pretty hard to seize the initiative.
Yes, they don't make it easy.
2d6, you got to roll a 9 or higher.
Yep.
And I don't think there's very few modifiers except when you've failed it.
Yeah,
and
so
you're doing it the next turn.
If you failed
you
it previously, you get, and it's a cumulative. So if you fail it,
+2,
and then you fail
+3.
it again,
Yep.
At which point you're probably not
dead.
good. Or there's those evasive maneuver tokens you can cash in for positives and good or bad weather.
Those were really an interesting concept.
Yep.
You know, you forego an action of yours to gain this evasive maneuvers token, and then it's like you can do several different little things with it, and that's cool.
Yes,
I like that.
Or if if a naval search fails when you're moving only a short distance, a naval search fails, you can then like you get one there because you're like, move out the way. So, which then like, oh no, am I rewarding my opponent by making this naval search? Because if I fail, you're going
to get a token. Yeah, very cool choice there.
There's just so many bits going on.
I also really liked the leaders. I know we didn't use every leader, but that was kind of cool. Just the fact that they had different abilities that could be used and exploited. I thought that was cool.
And almost all of them are different as well.
Okay.
All they all have different abilities in them. And even the weather.
That's actually a really good part. And I know that sounds stupid. That was a really fun part of every turn. You got to make this weather roll.
It's such a simple change to what you're doing. Like if it's good weather, when you do a time lapse, you remove a number of trajectories or trajectory segments equal to your speed, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas
very slow, medium, and fast.
Yeah.
Which is like
anyway from
2 to 4.
But if there's bad weather, you roll a d6, and that's how many you move. And so, if you're a very slow ship in bad weather, you can roll a 6.
You want bad weather,
and you remove 6 because it. And so then that's when you start getting to the abstractions. Well, the weather hid me whilst I moved away.
Right. Or the waves pushed me, or the wind, pushed me a little bit.
If I'm a really fast ship and I roll really badly, like, well, the weather hindered my movement.
Yeah.
It represents both things at the same time.
It creates a narrative concept.
And that's where, again, you get into the abstractions of your time lapse isn't technically like, this is where I am, this is my movements, this is how far I moved. That's not actually what it represents, and the rules tell you that.
Yeah.
But, oh, gosh, there's so much in here that's so fascinating to get to grips with, and we will play this next week, and we'll do a full review and kind of show you everything.
Well, one other comment I want to make. I love historical war games for a couple of reasons.
Yes.
One is the conversation it generates. We had some really interesting conversations. You're a Royal Navy guy, right? I mean, you're English.
To an extent, yes.
We talked about Portsmouth, and we talked about what were the U-boats really like, and why did the British not have better or more, it was just such an interesting when's the last time we talked about the naval part of World War II war game? It's been a while.
Yeah, especially in the Atlantic.
So that's just one of the things I really enjoyed about this. It's just different. It creates a different thought process, a different experience. I really enjoyed that.
Yes. And I do, this checks a lot of boxes for me from the topic as well. Mm-hmm. I've recently been reading a lot and watching some documentaries about Coastal Command and, all the anti-submarine warfare stuff. And this is more of that's one aspect of this game. It's only one aspect, but it's in there still. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
Seeing a lot of this and being able to play around with it as well.
It's to me, it's very deep. There's just a lot of depth here.
Yeah, and we will get into a lot of it, and we will do a full review. Again, that was initial thoughts, and it was like 25 minutes. So.
Yeah, I know. And we did it. We did an unboxing video.
Yes.
So that's. I think we're going to put that out first before we do this.
Yes,
maybe
you should have already seen it.
Yeah. So check those out, and then here next Saturday we're gonna. I'm gonna come over real early, and we're gonna
we'll bash.
We're gonna try to do
some of the
a couple
stuff.
of scenarios, maybe even do a big campaign. But then we'll do our normal video.
Yes, and what I'll do is
I'll
try to do some solo in between, so I can offer some thoughts about how
that you can bone
works.
up on some strategies, so that you can crush me.
So I can get good at it.
Fantastic,
and then I can beat you.
Thanks. Well, I'm going to take the game home.
So, Atlantic Chase from GMT. Those are some initial thoughts. Don't let all the paper scare you off.
Yeah.
Give this a go. If you're any interest
Definitely.
in the topic, there's just fascinating stuff in this box.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we got a copy.
Yes.
So glad.
So, appreciate you guys tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.